Discipline is self-respect in action. Picture this. It's 5:30 in the morning. Your alarm goes off, your bed is warm, the room is cold, and every fiber of your being is screaming at you to hit that snooze button just one more time. In that moment, you make a choice. And that choice reveals everything about how much you truly respect yourself. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most powerful truths you'll ever encounter. Discipline is self-respect in action, not motivation, not willpower, not some superhuman ability that only a chosen few possess. It's something far more profound, far more accessible, and infinitely more transformative. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus wasn't always the person you'd call disciplined. 3 years ago, he was 80 pounds overweight, drowning in credit card debt, and working a job that made him miserable. Every morning, he'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back at him. His clothes didn't fit, his energy was non-existent, his dreams felt like distant memories from another lifetime. But here's what changed everything for Marcus. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't some rock-bottom crisis. It was a single, quiet realization while sitting in his car after another exhausting day. He asked himself one simple question: do I respect myself? The answer terrified him, because deep down, he knew the truth. Every time he chose the easy path over the right path, every time he broke a promise to himself, every time he said tomorrow instead of today, he was sending himself a message, and that message was clear: you're not worth the effort. That realization changed Marcus's life, but not overnight, not through some magical transformation, through something far more powerful: the daily practice of treating himself like someone he respected. So let's break this down. What does it actually mean that discipline is self-respect in action? Think about how you treat people you respect. When you respect someone, you show up for them. You keep your promises to them. You don't waste their time. You invest in them. You protect their interests. You speak kindly to them, even when they make mistakes. Now, here's the uncomfortable question. Do you treat yourself with that same respect? When you set an alarm to wake up early and then hit snooze 5 times, you're breaking a promise to yourself. When you say you're going to eat healthy but order takeout for the 4th night in a row, you're not honoring your word. When you scroll through social media for hours instead of working on that project you claim is important to you, you're showing yourself that your time doesn't matter. Each of these moments might seem small, insignificant, harmless, but here's what most people don't understand. Your subconscious is always watching. It's keeping score. And every time you break a commitment to yourself, you're making a deposit into the account of self-doubt and a withdrawal from the account of self-respect. Let me share another story. There was a monk who lived in a monastery high in the mountains. A young seeker climbed the treacherous path to ask him the secret to enlightenment. The monk smiled and said, "Follow me." He led the seeker to a garden where he spent the next hour carefully tending to each plant. He watered them precisely, he removed weeds with gentle attention, he adjusted stakes and ties with meticulous care. The seeker grew impatient. "Master, I came to learn about enlightenment, not gardening." The monk looked up and said, "How you do anything is how you do everything. If you cannot respect this garden, cannot give it the attention and care it deserves, how will you ever respect your own mind? Discipline isn't about controlling yourself, it's about caring for yourself." That story illustrates something profound. Discipline isn't punishment. It's not about being harsh with yourself or living some joyless existence of rigid rules. Discipline is the ultimate act of self-love. It's saying, I respect myself too much to settle for less than I'm capable of. So how do we actually practice this? How do we turn this philosophy into something real and actionable in our daily lives? First, understand that discipline starts with clarity. You cannot respect what you don't value. Marcus, the man I mentioned earlier, had to get crystal clear on what he actually valued. Not what society told him to value, not what looked good on Instagram, but what genuinely mattered to him. He realized he valued health because he wanted to be present for his kids. He valued financial stability because he wanted freedom from constant stress. He valued meaningful work because he wanted to feel like his life had purpose. Once he had that clarity, discipline became easier because every act of discipline was an act of honoring his deepest values. Here's your first action step. Write down your 5 core values. Not goals, values. The principles that, when honored, make you feel aligned with who you truly are. Maybe it's health, creativity, connection, growth, or contribution. Whatever they are, get clear on them. Now, here's where it gets real. For each value, ask yourself, how am I currently showing respect for this value through my daily actions? If you say you value health but haven't exercised in 3 months, there's a disconnect. That disconnect is where self-respect breaks down. The second principle is this: start small, but start now. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They wake up Monday morning filled with motivation and create this elaborate plan to transform their entire life overnight. They're going to wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for an hour, go to the gym, eat perfectly, work on their side business, read for an hour, and journal before bed. By Wednesday, they've crashed and burned. And then they tell themselves the story that they're just not disciplined people, that discipline is for others, not for them. But the truth that Marcus discovered is discipline is built through tiny, consistent acts of self-respect. He didn't start by overhauling his entire life. He started with 1 push-up. Literally, 1 single push-up every morning. That was it. Why? Because he could always do 1 push-up, and every time he did that 1 push-up, even when he didn't feel like it, even when it seemed pointless, he was sending himself a powerful message. I keep my promises to myself. I am someone who follows through. After 2 weeks, 1 push-up became 5, then 10, then a full workout. But it started with the smallest possible act of self-respect. What's your 1 push-up? Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water before your coffee. Maybe it's writing 1 sentence in a journal. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you can do it every single day, no matter what. Here's something crucial that most people miss. Discipline isn't about never failing. It's about how you respond when you do fail. Marcus had plenty of days where he didn't follow through, days where he ate junk food, days where he skipped his workout, days where he wasted hours on meaningless distractions. The old Marcus would have used those failures as proof that he was hopeless, that change was impossible. But the new Marcus understood something different. He understood that self-respect includes self-compassion. When you truly respect someone, you don't abandon them the moment they make a mistake. You don't write them off as a lost cause. You show them grace, help them learn, and support them in doing better next time. So when Marcus slipped up, he practiced what he called the 24-hour rule. No matter what happened, he gave himself 24 hours to get back on track. He didn't beat himself up, he didn't throw in the towel, he simply acknowledged what happened, learned from it if there was a lesson, and made a different choice the next day. This is crucial. Self-respect without self-compassion becomes self-punishment. And self-punishment is not discipline, it's abuse. Let me tell you what happened to Marcus after 3 years of practicing discipline as self-respect. He lost the weight, but more importantly, he gained something far more valuable. He gained himself back. He gained the ability to look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back at him, not because his body changed, but because his relationship with himself transformed. He paid off his debt, but the real win wasn't the zero balance. It was the knowledge that he could trust himself to do hard things, to delay gratification, to choose his future over his present comfort. Here's what he told me that brought tears to my eyes. For the first time in my adult life, I'm proud of myself, not because of what I've achieved, but because of who I've become. I'm someone who keeps his word. I'm someone who honors his values. I'm someone who respects himself enough to do the right thing even when it's hard. You see, in our culture, we've confused discipline with deprivation. We think discipline means giving things up, denying ourselves, living some austere existence devoid of pleasure or spontaneity. But that's not discipline.
That's self-punishment disguised as virtue. Real discipline is liberation. It's the freedom that comes from being in control of yourself rather than being controlled by your impulses, your emotions, your circumstances. It's the freedom that comes from knowing that you can trust yourself, that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. Think about it. How much mental energy do you waste on the gap between who you want to be and who you actually are? How much shame, guilt, and self-loathing comes from constantly breaking promises to yourself?
When you practice discipline as self-respect, that gap starts to close. And as it closes, something magical happens. You gain confidence. Not the fake surface-level confidence that comes from external validation, but the deep, unshakable confidence that comes from self-knowledge. You know who you are. You know you can count on yourself. And that changes everything. So let's bring this home with some practical strategies you can implement immediately. Strategy number 1, the evening audit. Every night before bed, ask yourself one question. Did I respect myself today? Not was I perfect, not did I accomplish everything. Simply, did I show myself respect through my choices and actions? If the answer is yes, acknowledge it. Let yourself feel proud. If the answer is no, don't spiral into self-criticism. Just ask, what would respecting myself look like tomorrow? And commit to one specific action. Strategy number 2, the identity statement. Marcus created a simple statement that he repeated to himself every morning. I am someone who respects myself enough to do hard things. Not I will try to do hard things, not I want to be disciplined, but I am someone who respects myself enough to do hard things. This subtle shift from aspiration to identity is transformative. You're not trying to become disciplined. You are someone who practices discipline because you respect yourself. Strategy number 3, the choice framework. Before every significant decision, ask yourself, does this choice respect my future self? When you're deciding whether to hit snooze, whether to have that second drink, whether to binge another episode or go to bed, pause and ask that question. Your future self is depending on your present self to make choices that honor them. Discipline is simply choosing to be a good ancestor to your future self. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great, but you don't understand my situation. I have responsibilities. I'm exhausted. I don't have time for elaborate morning routines and perfect habits. I hear you, and you're right. Life is complex. Life is messy. But here's what I want you to understand. Discipline isn't about having perfect circumstances. It's about honoring yourself despite imperfect circumstances. The single mother working 2 jobs who still finds 15 minutes to move her body, that's discipline as self-respect. The student buried under deadlines who still protects their sleep, that's discipline as self-respect. The person battling depression who still shows up for therapy, that's discipline as self-respect. Discipline doesn't mean your life has to look like anyone else's. It means you respect yourself enough to work with what you have, where you are, right now. Here's the beautiful truth about discipline as self-respect. It compounds. Just like interest in a bank account, every small act of self-respect builds on the previous one. That one push-up becomes 5, becomes a full workout, becomes a transformed body and mindset. But more importantly, it transforms how you see yourself. You stop being someone who can't stick to things. You stop being someone who lacks willpower. You become someone who honors your word, someone who respects yourself, someone who understands that true freedom comes from self-mastery, not self-indulgence. Marcus discovered this truth, and today, 3 years later, he's not just healthier and more financially stable, he's fundamentally different. He moves through the world with quiet confidence. He makes decisions aligned with his values. He shows up for himself the same way he shows up for the people he loves. And here's the thing, Marcus isn't special. He doesn't have some genetic advantage. He didn't have a perfect upbringing or unlimited resources. He's just a regular person who decided that he was worth the effort, that he deserved his own respect, and he backed up that decision with consistent, disciplined action. So I'll leave you with this challenge. Starting tomorrow morning, choose one small act of self-respect. Just one. Maybe it's getting out of bed when your alarm goes off. Maybe it's drinking water before coffee. Maybe it's taking 5 deep breaths before checking your phone. Whatever it is, commit to it for 30 days. Not because it's going to revolutionize your life overnight, but because every time you follow through, you're depositing into the account of self-respect. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who keeps your word. You're practicing discipline, not as punishment, but the ultimate act of self-love. And watch what happens. Watch how that one act ripples out into other areas of your life. Watch how your confidence grows. Watch how the gap between who you want to be and who you are starts to close. Because at the end of the day, discipline isn't about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes or living some impossible standard. Discipline is simply self-respect in action. It's treating yourself like someone worth fighting for, someone worth showing up for, someone worth honoring. You are that someone. You've always been that someone. Now it's time to prove it to yourself. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't need to change everything. You just need to respect yourself enough to change one thing. Start there. The rest will follow. Until next time, treat yourself like someone you respect, because you are.